welcome to another edition of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast presented by DreamCricket. I'm your host, Peter Delapenna, and on today's show, we have a legend, a titan of the associate cricket world, Paras Khadka, the former Nepal captain who recently retired after an illustrious career spanning close to 2 decades in international cricket. Just as we had on Carl Sandry recently to get some perspective on the opposite side of the field as USA was about to take on Papua New Guinea in 2 ODIs, I thought it would be a great opportunity to get Paras Khadka on the show ahead of USA's 2 matches against Nepal in the Cricket World Cup League 2 Tri-Series coming up next week in Oman. And Paras was very, very generous enough to agree to come on the show. We talk about his recent retirement decision, but a good chunk of the show is spent talking about the rivalry with USA. The interview is going to come in 2 parts. Before we get to the interview with Paras Khadka, I want to remind everybody that the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is presented by DreamCricket. DreamCricket Academy offers private and group lessons for children of all ages. DreamCricket Academy has competitive youth teams organized at under 12, under 14, under 16, and under 18 level. Multiple students of the DreamCricket Academy have been selected to represent USA at under 19 level over the years, including Raymond Ramratan, Harish Aishwarya, and the 2021 USA Under 19 National Championship Tournament MVP Sai Mukamala of the champion Mid-Atlantic squad. DreamCricket Academy's coaching staff is also led by the head coach of the USA Under 19 National Champion Mid-Atlantic Regional Squad, Earl Daly, himself a former USA national team player, and he's also the head coach of the New Jersey Stallions, who are doing very, very well in the opening season of the minor league cricket T20 franchise competition. Dream Cricket has private lanes available for booking, as well as BOLA bowling machines to use for optimized training. The Dream Cricket Academy is located at 400 Apgar Drive in Somerset, New Jersey, just a mile off of exit 12 on Interstate 287. For more information, call 908-938-3787 or email cricket@dreamcricket.com. The Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast is also sponsored by Musa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, and now one of the premier venues for minor league cricket T20 franchise tournament. It's also a venue where Paras Khadka has played when he represented the Nepali Rhinos squad at a USA domestic event a couple years ago at Musa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. For more information, call 713-534-2195. That's Musa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas. We have a very, very special guest with us, the former captain of Nepal. There are so many accolades I can use to introduce him, but he really needs no introduction. Paras Khadka. Paras, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pete. How are you?
I'm better now that you're on the show. It's good to have you. It's good to see you after a while. The last time I would have seen you was your final ODI against USA in Kathmandu just before the start of the pandemic. Very famous match, a famous way to end your career on, your ODI career, 35 all out. Tell me, what has retirement life been like for you so far?
This is one question that I do get very often nowadays as to what are you looking up to? How's life post-retirement? I think I've taken a step back in terms of, just managing a bit of time for myself. I'm much more relaxed, definitely. Why? Because I don't have to, wake up and set the alarm of go play matches or practice or do all those sorts. But having said that, I do miss playing because cricket's something where as long as I'm there, I think for all cricketers, they would never, ever, ever, ever miss playing. But then they want to, keep playing for as much as possible. But for me, I was very clear of where I wanted to be, and I'm here today, a retired cricketer at a very young age, and then hopefully I've just retired from cricket as an active cricketer. But having said that, I'm not going to retire myself from international cricket, and really looking forward to what's ahead in Nepal cricket.
You retired at a young age. You're only 33. I've got more gray hair than you. You don't have any gray hair. I've got gray hair. You don't have any. So why now? Why did you decide to stop?
See, for me, it was very clear from the very beginning that as long as I was on a cricket field, I had to make sure that I made an impact. And I believe that the last couple of years, a year and a half, we lost it due to the pandemic. And I have this dream of, helping Nepal reach somewhere. I managed to play a World Cup myself and get ODI status, which would probably be the two highlights of my career. And having seen the growth around me in terms of fan base, the number of people that play the game now, investors, the corporate and financial side to Nepali cricket, and with everything around me, I thought that maybe it's time that I take a step back. Why? Because this was it for me. The ODI status was where, as a cricketer, as a player, this was the pinnacle where I could have helped Nepal cricket reach. And now, my ultimate dream is to see Nepal become a test playing country. And it might take forever, or it might not happen as well. But with the realistic approach that I have gone through my individual career, and of course, Nepal cricket's pathway from all the fluctuations that you are very well aware of, we have somehow managed to, reach where we are today. So for me, I just felt that it was about time. And now my active role would be to try and improve the cricketing setup in this country. I have a lot of faith from a lot of people, from the government to the corporate sector to the fan base to everybody who knows and loves Nepal cricket, and they see me as doing something. And I think now I made it very clear that my first pathway to helping Nepal would be I'm starting up my own cricket academy, and hopefully with this academy, I want to take this all over Nepal in next 3 to 5 years. Provide a platform for our cricketers, for men, women, both, for youngsters to groom, maybe get in all the cricketing experts, cricket playing communities to come to Nepal, participate, and in the meanwhile, help develop grassroots cricket. And that is something where I really feel that we need to push ourselves in, and hopefully I can play a part in it. It won't just be possible because of myself. It'll take a lot of effort from a lot of people around me, and I believe there are good people around to make this happen, and I want to just be a catalyst to all of this.
And is it the Paras Khadka Cricket Academy, or is there some other name?
We've named it as Cricket Excellence Center, CEC. So we're starting off with its headquarters here in Kathmandu, and hope to really set this up very nicely in coming days, years. I think it'll probably be set up by the end of November, hopefully, because there's a lot of construction work and a lot of logistics that are being carried on right now. And once I announced the fact that I was starting up my own academy, a lot of people from outside Kathmandu saying, come here, we are ready, let's start this. So that's been a very good sign that people are actually excited. And I hope I can fulfill people's expectations. As a cricketer, you know how fanatic our cricket fan base is. So for me, those expectations of the fans that they had over me as a cricketer, I hope those expectations can be met off the field as well, now that I'm starting up this academy, and hope to create a cricketing culture in Nepal with all stakeholders involved.
Grassroots development. So as somebody who former Nepal under-19 captain, born and brought up in Nepal, I want to get to know a bit more about your backstory, because I don't know much about it, to be honest, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people out there who are curious. So where were you born? Where did you grow up in Nepal? Was it in Kathmandu or somewhere else? And how did you first get involved in cricket?
I was born in Kathmandu, yes. My school's name is South Point Boarding High School. It was a very small school, but I think it played a very influential role in at least shaping up my cricket career. Why? Because I remember growing up, we used to have this students versus teachers matches during weekends and after school. Because I lived very close by, it was just running off after school. School used to end around 3:30, 45, then go home, have your snacks, come back, then play till 5:36, and then wake up early in the morning, freshen up. And if the classes started around 9:30, we'd make sure that we reach at 8, almost 1.5 hours earlier, so that we could continue. It is a form of continuation where we had numbers. We are around 15, 16 boys. So if you batted overnight, it's almost like test cricket, where if you batted overnight and you had to go home, then that person would get to bat the next day. And so that's, whether it's the bowler or the batter, we'd put records individually in our minds. It wasn't much records, but that's how we kept rolling. We had matches during weekends. We did not participate much in cricket tournaments. Why? Because there wasn't much school level cricket even then. Even now, there isn't much school cricket, but we made sure that we watched a lot of cricket on TV and tried to emulate. If it was a Muralitharan or a Wasim Akram or a Shoaib Akhtar, the way he was running, or Sachin Tendulkar with his elbow high, you had all these people that we looked up to growing up, and it was incredible. Why? Because we're so close to India, and we have access to all the cricketing channels. So that way, we used to watch. I used to watch India-Pakistan matches in Sharjah, and eventually got the whole privilege of playing in Sharjah in my first ever tour under 15. So for me, it was very clear that whatever position that I chose to step in, it was about trying to create a difference. Never had this dream of wanting to become a cricketer. I was very, very clear with the fact that I was good in studies. So I made sure that I'll complete my high school and probably definitely travel to a cricket playing country. It would have either been England or Australia. Why? Because I thought I'll carry on with my education as well as take up my cricketing career along the same way. But I think destiny had other things in store for me. And here I am today, growing up, watched a lot of cricket, came through absolute, even everybody, even before me or my generation of cricketers had no formal cricket coaching. We just watched TV and practiced on our own and made it to where we are today. I would probably say the first formal coaching that we actually got was maybe after Pubudu came in, where he made us realize, the things that we needed to do. Before that, it was just simple, normal cricket, and just taking it from there. It was more of things that happened more than you making things happen. So that's been the whole growth process in terms of my own young cricketing background.
You mentioned a number of names in there in terms of idols and people you looked up to through watching matches on television. And as somebody who was born in 1987, like yourself, looking through the scorecards of Nepal's cricket history, Nepal didn't start playing international matches, according to the Cricket Archive database, until 1996 in the Asian Cricket Council Trophy. And they didn't participate in an ICC tournament until 2001, the ICC Trophy in Toronto. So you were really the first generation of players that excelled at international level in terms of when you emerged on the seniors scene in the late 2000s and then throughout the decade of the 2010s. But there weren't really a lot of opportunities for idols or people to look up to locally within Nepal cricket. Did you have any idols locally, or who were your local role models, if anything, that you could glean on for inspiration? Or was it purely, like you said, all the instances of watching cricket on TV and the India-Pakistan matches and anything else you saw on television that really motivated your cricket growth?
I remember 1996 World Cup when Kalu Vitharana and Sanat Jayasuriya, they took the world by storm. And it was something where I still have very strong visible memories of how Sri Lanka came through the ranks and managed to, win the World Cup. And growing up, I think cricket was being played in Nepal, but it wasn't structured as much. There were club level tournaments happening. I think the basic requirement was that people would just turn up and play matches, and that's about it. So what happened was the real impact would probably be when 2002 Under-19 World Cup in New Zealand, when Nepal beat Bangladesh and Pakistan. I think that's when, for me, I got this whole idea that, okay, we have an international cricket team now that's winning at international level. So that's when we beat test playing countries at Under-19 level the first time. Also made me believe personally that things can be done or things can be achieved. I was still in school then, still hadn't represented Nepal or had absolute no hope or plans to represent Nepal. But for me, it was very personal in terms of every time I think of how things have panned out for me, it was destined for me to be part of this whole cricket extravaganza. From a schoolboy who had no dreams of playing for Nepal, ended up playing for 17, 18 years, captain Nepal senior team under 17, 19s, and just the growth of Nepal cricket over the years has fascinated me, and it's been incredible. Why? Because from those days to where we are today, I just believe that there've been a lot of inspirational people around, a lot of people who have shaped us to where we are today. But for me, it was inspiration from each other. We took inspiration from cricketers around us, where like somebody like Shakti, who's probably the most hardworking cricketer that this country's ever seen, or somebody like Basant, who just naturally so good would turn up and start taking wickets, or Gyanendra Malla, who would hit the most amazing cover drive with the right perfect technique. So all these kinds of things, we looked around each other, or you had some great athletes who dive in and take the impossible catches and save that odd boundaries. So these were the inspirations that myself grew around from under 15s to 17s. And I'm sure that's how most of us related to each other as well. And we've rubbed off on each other. And there's no denying to the fact that Nepal cricket is where today. It's down to this unbelievable passion that the players and the coaches, and the belief and the determination that we had in each other, and the team spirits brought us to where we are today. And I'm very glad that I picked up cricket and I was able to, somehow be involved in it.
I know you're a big football fan, and I've seen you post recently supporting the Nepal national team as they go on to World Cup qualifiers. I know you're always supporting Liverpool whenever Liverpool does something in either the Premier League or the Champions League. You're always quick on the trigger to put out a tweet or something else on social media supporting Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp and whatever else is going on in current times. Was cricket your first love, or was football or some other sport the thing that you initially were drawn to, and then cricket just kind of took over later on?
During the rainy season, we used to play a lot of football. Why? Because cricket wasn't that big. And also you could not play cricket during the rainy season. So I remember back when I was in grade 8 or 9, I did go, because I was very good in football as well. So I went into this regional qualifiers. There was a selection tournament of maybe around 100 kids had been gathered from different parts of the country, and they made us play a 20-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute match for divided it into 2 teams, and that was it. The selection was done then and there. I went in and I came back home saying, I think football is not going to work for me. Why? Because I don't think I'm going to get selected. Why? Because it was just 20 minutes and I don't think I touched the ball, what must have been twice or thrice. And then I realized that, okay, that's it for football dreams. And then because we were playing cricket so regularly, we had this inter-school cricket tournament when I was in grade 10. And I remember telling the teachers then that we had to participate in one of these tournaments. We went in, participated, won that tournament. I was the school's cricket captain. And that was a selection tournament for the under 15 regional team here in Kathmandu. Before participating, we had no idea that it was a selection tournament. We just wanted to play any cricket, and having got a tournament to play, we went in, beat one of the top top schools then, and I did well personally as well. And that's how I first got selected for the Kathmandu under 15s, and we had the regional tournament, did well, did okay, and that's how I got selected into the national camp, and the rest is history, as they say.
You played under 15, under 17, and under 19 level cricket for Nepal. Under 15 made your debut in 2002. What was it like getting that first call, or how did you receive the first notification that you were going to play for Nepal?
We were in a camp, and because I'm sure the coaches saw something in me, so that way it was discussed as to what role should I be given to, and I became the vice captain because I'm sure people saw something in me with the cricket coaches around me, and I had a senior member who managed to, put in a lot of what I would say inputs to how we should function, how we should go about things, and he couldn't make it because when the age criteria came in, he didn't qualify. Then someone else became the captain, and I became the vice captain. It was just incredible. Why? Because I remember first going on a plane to an international tour, my first ever international tour, just sitting on that plane with young age group boys. And then remember entering Dubai. Then we were stationed at Holiday Inn, went in there and went in the room with 5-star accommodation, jumped into the bed, went outside the balcony, looked around and saw a very nice swimming pool downstairs and thought, wow, this is the life that, you dreamt of as a young 15-year-old, and you're representing your country. And that's how it all started. And I think the bigger side to it was when I got man of the match for the first match that I played for Nepal against Singapore. There were headlines, paper cuttings that was on the newspaper. And I remember my parents were being called by, I think, Binod, who's one of our premier cricket reporters. He called my parents, and that interview was there in the newspaper. And just that photo on the newspaper really made my family and everybody around very happy. So that would probably be my biggest recall, if I can term it as such now, because when you represented your country and you saw your son's name on the newspaper, I think that made my family very proud.
You took 3 for 12 in 8 overs in that match where you were named player of the match on your Nepal under-15s debut against Singapore under-15s at Dubai. And you also scored 19 not out in the chase. You bowled out Singapore for 95, and you came in at number 4 with 19 not out off 11 balls. Sarad Vasakar is on that team. Mahesh Chetri. There's a few other guys who played for the Nepal senior team in that squad. So at that point, were you bowling spin or medium pace or both? What was the genesis of your bowling at that time?
Right arm, 140 clicks. No, I'm just kidding. It is gentle medium pace as always, but hitting top of off.
Sometimes that's all it takes to win matches, and you did that plenty of times for Nepal. So you mentioned you started off as vice captain for the under-15s, and then you captained the under-17 team.
In fact, I played under-19 before under-17. So what happened was after under-15, there was 2003 under-19 Asia Cup in Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Shakti was my first under-19 captain. He was the captain, and we went on to win the championship. Then the winners of the Asian region would qualify for the World Cup, which was then played in Bangladesh in 2004. And then in 2004, before the under-19 World Cup, I got to captain the Nepal under-17s.
Did you feel like you were being groomed long-term to be a future men's captain, or were you just thinking in the moment, I'm just here to play cricket and enjoy my cricket?
I was just there to enjoy my cricket. Honestly, I never thought I'd make it to the senior team. Why? Because at that point of time, when I looked at myself, the competition that I had around me it is very difficult. Why? Because these names were there in the Nepali cricket system for a very long time. Guys like Mehboob Alam, or Paras Lunia, or Paras Lohani, or Manjeet Shrestha. These are seniors before me, or a Raju Khadka, who's captain of Nepal. And for me, just to find a place in the 14, I would look at that squad and just think to myself, I would never, ever make it. Why? Because I never saw that spot. For me, I enjoyed playing cricket. I used to play a lot of basketball during my high school days. I was 6'2", so for a general Nepali, that was very tall. Although I was not great at scoring, I was very good in assisting, and the defense work was very strong. And I could, get a couple of layups here and there to, assist. So that way, with basketball and cricket going hand in hand, and my education, I never thought that I would actually make it to the senior team. Why? Because it wasn't a priority. I had no any dream of even making it to the senior. I just let things take its own course. But what I always did was, as long as I was doing something, I put my heart and soul into it, whether it's playing basketball or somehow managing a bit of studies, and then cricket, whether it was training, whether playing under 15, 17, 19s. I made sure that I gave it my absolute best. And I'm sure people around me, then people before me, must have seen that quality. And that's been my strength over the years, where I was someone who was very, very determined, someone who really pushed myself. And that's how I looked at myself. There's no way that I was making the senior team then.
You've talked about your focus on education, and you thought you didn't believe you were going to make the senior team, and you were hoping if cricket was going to be furthered, it would be something that would be tied to your education. So going to study abroad in England or Australia or somewhere else where there would be opportunities in the university. That has happened to other players where there's been that turning point. And a perfect example of that is if you look at the 2006 Nepal under-19 squad that won the plate final over New Zealand in Sri Lanka that you were a part of. You were in that squad with Gian Anjamala and Basan Regmi, but the captain of that team, Kanishka Chalgai, is a very, very talented player for Nepal. And I think somebody who a lot of people expected would have had a very long career in the Nepal senior team. He went off to university in California, never came back. He's still there now. He's still playing in California to this day. So there are moments in somebody's career where one decision gets made and it just changes your fortune forever. What was that sliding door moment for you, if there was one? Was there a point where you went from not really taking cricket seriously from a mental standpoint in terms of you didn't really visualize it as a long-term opportunity professionally or a way to make a living, and you had this idea to go to university, and then something changes where all of a sudden you realize you can be somebody who makes a living out of this? What was that moment for you?
2008, when we played against America, I remember in Jersey when we lost to Afghanistan in the semis, and we played for the third place playoffs, I think. And I was the vice captain then. I remember then coach, Mr. Roy Luke Dias, him coming over and telling me that now that we have not qualified into another division, you're the vice captain. And he said, would you like to captain the national team? And I said, no. I said, sir, I don't want to captain the national team. I am planning to apply to Australia. I want to go to Australia, get my high school education done properly, and then play some form of cricket there. And I denied him. It was a one-to-one, and I said, so please let me go to Australia. I don't see myself doing anything over here. So what happened, I came back, applied for Australia. Then a lot of students were getting a lot of visas. Then visa was a very normal thing. But apparently there was a regional tournament here in Nepal. I had to go play that tournament. So I'd given up all my documents to one of this consultancies that used to get all the documentations done. Apparently they put in all the forged documents, and next thing you know, because I was playing cricket, I had no time. I'd given them all the responsibility. Next thing I know, I did not get the visa. So now what's remaining is I had to stay back in Nepal. I had no other option besides playing cricket, because I was always playing for the national team. It'd been already 2004, 5, 6, 4 years that, and I was the vice captain. So 2008, apparently, because my visa got rejected for Australia, I had to stay back, which I'm very glad to that consultancy. And like they say, it was destined for me to, move on to the next phase. That was captainship. And 2000, when I became the captain, it's strange. Why? Because my first match, when I became captain, I was the youngest in that team. From the age point of view, I was the youngest, but never felt that pressure because all of us were so involved in trying to help Nepal cricket grow and win matches. So it was great camaraderie, just being with the seniors, understanding, learning from them. And then you had no other option but to lead your country and then take things forward. So that would probably be a turning point, if I can term it as such.
In the hidden backstory of Paras Khadka's illustrious international career, we have the Australian government and the visa service to thank for botching your application.
I wouldn't say the Australian government, but it is the fault on my end, because the consultancy that I asked to, fill in the documents, put in all the wrong financial statement papers. So, and if I went to Australia eventually, it was something where I put in my head system saying like, I had to go. This is one place where, I could not get into for my higher education, but I went later on stage and just love it. And for a fact that I love the Australian cricket team. So that connection was always there.
Today's episode of the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast, presented by DreamCricket, is also sponsored by Musa Cricket Stadium, the first and original turf wicket facility in the state of Texas, and now one of the premier venues for the minor league cricket T20 franchise tournament. Located at 5515 McKeever Road in Pearland, 5 miles off the Bailey Road exit from State Route 288, and a half hour south of downtown Houston, Musa Cricket Stadium includes fully enclosed locker rooms and change rooms plus shower facilities after a day's play, as well as outdoor nets for all your training needs. For more information, call 713-534-2195. That's Musa Cricket Stadium in Pearland, Texas.
You just opened the door. This is a main reason why we wanted to get you on the Stars and Stripes podcast, the rivalry with USA over the years. So you just touched on it.
Yeah.
This very important moment in this conversation you had with Roy Dias in 2008 on the tour of Jersey. That was the first of many, many battles with USA over the years.
Yeah.
And that first one in Jersey in 2008, World Cricket League Division Five. You actually had two matches. You were supposed to play the USA in group play, but the match was washed out the first time around. And then at the second attempt, it ended as no result. You got to that in the first innings, and Nepal made 182, and then USA wasn't able to chase. They never got the second innings underway. But then Nepal and USA advanced from one side of the draw into the semifinals, and Afghanistan and Jersey advanced from the other side. And you lost the semifinal to Afghanistan. USA lost their semifinal, obviously, to Jersey, and that started the path for Afghanistan to move up from Division 5 into ODI status from 2008 to 2009. But the third place playoff match, you were somebody who had a very pivotal role over the years in many of these USA-Nepal encounters. Right from the start, 48, you top score in that match. Nepal wins by 96 runs in a total of 189. You top score with 48. Then you took 1 for 18 in 7 overs in the chases. USA was bowled out for 93 and 42 overs. What do you remember about USA, your first recollections of the squad in that very first encounter in Jersey in 2008?
You had Lennox Kush, who was one of the premier players then. If I may, did Steve play in that game, Messiah?
Steve Messiah was the captain, and
Yeah.
Lennox Kush, who at the time was a very well-regarded player in franchise cricket. He was part of the Stanford Superstars squad, and he played for Guyana in the first edition of the Champions League T20 tournament. So he came with a very good reputation. You had other players, obviously, as well. Sushan Nadkarni was opening the batting, and many others in that team. Imran Awan, who at one time was considered the fastest bowler in associate cricket.
Sushil over the years really pinned us down in so many matches. If I may not be but did he get run out in that game? I think he got run out. Was he?
He was run out, yes.
Yeah, he's run out trying to get a comfortable 2. You know how comfortable he would be getting those 2s, but there's a direct hit from all over from the boundary. It trickled down and hit the stumps, and we knew that it was an important wicket. Why? Because when we did all those pre-match analysis, we had heard that there's somebody who's playing Ranji level cricket in India, and if you play Ranji level cricket in India, you probably looked at, wow, it must be an important wicket or an important player. So when he got run out, I think things changed course. And over the years, you know how battles have turned in favor and against us when we've got him out or when we could not get him out.
That's a perfect segue to 2010. I think this is the most famous of matches on home soil. 2010 World Cricket League Division 5 in Nepal, the final match of the group stage, when USA, Singapore, and Nepal were all fighting for top two spots. USA restricts Nepal to 162 for 9 in that game, and by this point, you had become captain of Nepal. Like you said, Sushan Nadkarni, 57 not out in the chase. Sushan Nadkarni, do we blame him for sparking the riot? Who is most responsible for the events that unfolded that day?
It was pretty crazy back then if you talk about Nepal cricket, because we used to have a lot of these people who come in at the ground, just be wild at screaming and shouting Nepal and cheering us up. And I remember that game when we got 163 odd runs. We believed that at that stage, if we got anything above 150 with our spin bowling attack, we felt that we could beat anyone. But getting 150 itself was such a hard task. Then it was about getting those 120s and 30s and scrambling across. So when we got 163 odd runs, we at the innings break thought that we had enough. And we knew that the ball's going to turn because it was second innings, and you had Sanjam and Basant and Shakti and Rahul, all these guys who played a pivotal role in helping Nepal, win over the last 4 matches. And world cricket was such that you lose one game, it came down to all three teams were tied at equal points, and we had to somehow win the game. Then this partnership between Sushil Nath Karni, where we brought in Sanjam Regmi from one end at the shorter side of the TU grounds at one of the side pitches where the match was held. He kept peppering him, and the left-right hand combination with himself and Aditya made us, think a lot. At least made me think, because it came down to a fact that we tried to protect one side of the small ground, but that would mean that if you bring in a left-hander, it would mean a shorter side for the right-hand batsman and vice versa. So that way they rotated very nicely. Sushil was very, very clinical. He was very clear of the fact that US had to chase the score in this amount of overs. And we went into the game thinking that even if we lost, we would still make it. But midway down the game, I think around when the partnership started building, we got this information that if we don't restrict them under certain overs, it would mean that we would be eliminated. And I'm sure the word flew around the Tribhuvan University ground, and all people thought, if Nepal can't win today, we will not let anybody win. And it is more of a fashion statement then. It's bad to use the term fashion statement, but people would just enjoy just picking up a stone or something on those grass patches and mud patches. It wasn't stone, but it was those grass patches, which is very hard. And they used to throw it at the ground, throw at us. And all of a sudden, when they started smashing us, and there's around, I don't remember the exact amount of runs that was left, around 12, 13 runs. Everyone had to fly out. Why? Because there were lots of hurdles of stones and pebbles coming across our way, bottles of water being thrown at us, and it was just riots. I'm sure the Nepalese cricket fans must have seen this in 1996 when India was playing Sri Lanka in the semi-finals at Eden Gardens, where India could not win that game and they were struggling. The whole of Eden Gardens was lit up and the fans were throwing bottles, and the match had to be abandoned, and Sri Lanka qualified for the finals. So all these things must have subconsciously hit our Nepalese fan base then, where they thought that if the team doesn't win, we should throw stones or just disrupt things the way they want. But Destiny had other things in mind. The game got stopped, and there's a lot of Duckworth and Lewis and permutations and combinations. And if the game had not been stopped, we would not have qualified. Why? Because at that point of time, we were behind the net run rate. And because the game stopped, and with the cricket and Duckworth Lewis rules that we have, it came down to the fact that the over rates had to be reduced. The target also had to be managed, because we had lost around a period of 45 minutes to 1 hour time. And it was late in the afternoon. It was month of February. So that way, it was almost like peak winter season. And then when the game resumed, after putting in a lot of security protocol, we went in, and I think one thing that US did not do then was they could have just come and hit and completed those 11, 12 runs that was there. But even for them, I'm sure it came as a big shock. Why? Because they'd never experienced that before. Even for myself, I'd never experienced that before, having played for 5-6 years at junior level, senior levels, never seen that. So, and even for the batters, they kept on knocking, and we managed to somehow squeeze in 5-6 overs for those limited 12, 13 runs. And next thing you know, I remember who was the ICC media officer, Lucy Benjamin, who I think she's worked with ICC for a great number of years. She came and said that you guys have qualified. Everyone inside the dressing room is like, did we? And they're like, yes. Then what's the margin like? It's like, it was a matter of a ball. One ball. If that pelting of the stones had happened a couple of balls later, one ball later, it would have meant that Nepal would not have made it, even if it came down to Duckworth and Lewis. So that's how the whole dramatic story goes.
On previous episode of the podcast, I asked then USA Cricket Association CEO Don Lockerbie about this whole incident. I've talked with other USA players over the years, get their recollections of the event, and they talk about how it was just chaos and mayhem, and they didn't know what was going on. And some players were told who were in the dugout, stay in the dugout, stay in your dressing room, while Sushil and Aditya in the middle were basically told stay out in the middle because people aren't going to be able to throw objects that far to harm you. So the safest place is actually stay out there, because if you try and go from the field to the locker rooms, that's where the issue is. That's where the biggest threat is to get from one point A to point B. I've heard about it from the USA perspective. From your perspective, as the home captain in your home country, your home field, did you feel threatened at all?
We felt scared for sure. Why? Because imagine somebody throwing stones at you, right? You'd be scared if it hit you, you'd get injured. And just the shock of it. Why? Because we knew the crowd would be rowdy, but we did not expect it to go that bad, where the game had to be completely disrupted. We knew that maybe if somebody was drilling down the boundary line, you'd be peppered, saying, with words or maybe a bit of banter here and there. But when it came down from all sides of the ground, we had I was there at short covers. I was like, what's happening? All of a sudden, you had these hurdles of stone and what bottles coming into the ground, and the players from deep fine and deep square had to run in. We went into a huddle. Then all of a sudden they're still throwing stone. The police had to go intervene, and there was chaos all over at the crowd section. Inside, we had no idea what to do. We were thinking I think we should get inside. Why? Because it was safety first for us as well. But I remember, like you said, Sushil and Aditya, they wanted to stay in. Why? Because they knew that they had to win. It's as simple as that, because without winning, they would not qualify. And they had to get it in that time frame of 31 point something, whatever the Duckwood Lewis target was then. So they kept on peppering, and they're stationed at the middle of the pitch. We were there outside of the ground. Then we were told by the security that the best thing would be for us to get out of the ground. And I think we were the first ones who came out, Sushil and Aditya, maybe. I don't know, I could be wrong, but they came out later. It is more of safety. We just feared for our own safety then as a cricket team.
But did you feel like, again, they were throwing stones at you as the Nepal captain, being angry that Nepal was about to lose, or more that they were throwing it at USA players?
They were actually very disappointed in us. It was to us, not to US players. Why? Because they're more disappointed with the fact that we're about to lose.
Interestingly enough, after the match ends, you got to come out to the same place 24 hours later and play another match in front of an even bigger crowd. Actually, now Paul had qualified at this point. Nepal and USA go up. They're playing in the first place match, but still, by and large, it's the same fans in the same situation and an even bigger crowd, because the match that took place a day later, I think it went from being a Friday to a Saturday, so it was a weekend. So you had from 15,000, they had expanded it to 20,000 people crammed in like sardines on that day. Nepal holds USA to 172. And for people who remember Mahbub Alam being somebody who took 10 wickets, world record setting 10 wickets, one of the maybe forgotten performances and all the illustrious stories of spin bowlers over the years for Nepal, Rahul Vishwakarma, 7 for 15 to bowl USA out. And he had a very interesting line of attack, and I want to ask you about this. He was bowling to the right-handers, left arm over the wicket. He was basically pitching the ball into the footmarks well outside leg stump. Instead of trying to pat him away or block the ball away, bowling this negative line, USA kept on taking him on, hitting against the spin, trying to sweep, trying to pull. And that there were a lot of top edges that were created for those wickets. So I'm curious, what was the strategy, if you remember it, that went into that successful method to help you bowl USA out for 172 and win that match chasing?
We had Shakti and Basant, both regular left-arm orthodox. So Shakti was somebody who just come in and hit one spot day in, day out. And Basant was bowling around the wicket, hitting that good length area. And Rahul was someone who was actually struggling because he wasn't as consistent. But I had seen Rahul since my under-19 days because he had played under-19 cricket with me. And I knew that he had potential. And on that particular day, because we had two bowlers bowling around the wicket, both left-handers, we just thought that maybe if we really want to maximize the rough in the TU cricket pitch, why not change that angle where you'd make them think differently? Why? Because that strategy had not been used before. And just because we had lost the match one day, 24 hours earlier, we had to somehow make a plan as to if we are to throw in an element of surprise, it had to be with Rahul. Why? Because he wouldn't be talked about at that point of why, because he was a very young member of the national team. So Shakti and Basant, because they're doing very well, they had been looked into. So for us, it was about throwing in that a bit of surprise through Rahul.
And it succeeded with the 7 wickets for 15. And Shakti Gauchan and Basan Regmi didn't take any wickets that day. None for 31, none for 37. As you bowl out USA out for 172, but then you're cruising in the chase. Mahesh Chetri and Anil Mandal reach 85 for none. And then all of a sudden, a couple wickets start falling. You lose 4 wickets for 42. Shakti gets out. Shakti at that point was really a true all-rounder. He batted at number 3. You came in at number 4. Sharad Vasakar at number 5. You all get out in pretty quick succession. And I could sense the crowd starting to get a little bit anxious, and the riot police, which had been there the day before, they started to line the boundary again. And there was this feeling that, here we go again. Is it going to happen again? Did that go through your mind at all?
No, I think we'd been told that they would increase the security personnel. So because of what had happened, Cricket Association of Nepal made sure that they put in a lot of security people around the boundary line, as well as a lot of security inside the crowd section as well, so that you know now that people had to understand that this is not possible. And also the message was made loud and clear that if something like that was repeated, it would mean that Nepal would no longer get international cricket. It was all over the news, be over the radio, over TV, saying that this is how the crowd reacted. The world is now looking at Nepal, and generally Nepal's known for its hospitality. We are generous, we are kind people, we accept a lot of tourists, and we are very warm and hospitable. But the thing is that that incident, I'm sure, changed a lot of perception, where for cricket fans, if they started throwing stones, it would mean that they would not get to see the international cricket at their home ground. So that, with the addition of extra security, made sure that nobody threw stones at us. But like you said, those quick 4 wickets, and then I was in the dressing room and just looking around saying, we got this game, I hope nobody messes it. And eventually we chased it down and won our first ever senior level championship.
That paved the way to go into Division 4 into Italy, which took place about 6 months later in August 2010. You were supposed to play USA in the first day of the tournament, and that match got rained out midway through the first innings, so it had to be replayed on what was meant to be a rest day. That was crucial, the timing of that, because in between the originally scheduled first match and what wound up being the official match, Nepal lost to Tanzania. Very, very bad loss. And it turned the game against USA into a must-win. USA also was coming off a loss to Italy. So both teams had slipped up. And all of a sudden, what looked like it would be a foregone conclusion that USA and Nepal would advance, all of a sudden it turned into a must-win game for both teams at the Ovale de Rastignano and Pianoro, way out in the Wine Valley outside of Bologna. USA made 203 for 8 against Sushan Nakarni, crucial inning, 64 not out, thorn in the side of Nepal over the years. And you were the key wicket, as was typical over the years. In the chase, Nepal struggled early, and then you built a really good partnership with Gyanendra to get Nepal back into a position where it looked like it was a 50-50 match at that stage. You were going really well. And also for context, this match was played on an artificial wicket. This was not a turf wicket. It was on an artificial strip in Italy. At that point in the match, this partnership with you and Gyanendra, what was going through your mind? And then just take us through the sequence that unfolded to when you were dismissed by the off-spinner Mohammad Ghaus.
It was pretty strange. Why? Because we had never actually played on turf wickets before. I remember growing up playing matches on matting wickets, but when we went into Italy, it was matting wicket all over, because we just come from Division 5 where we played on a cricket pitch, and just to get used to those conditions was pretty difficult. And it was also difficult. Why? Because the surfaces were so different. The match that we lost against Tanzania, although it was on a matting wicket, it was thick outfield. We weren't renowned as big hitters then. So everything that went along the ground, normally which would fetch us 4 runs, would probably mean it would fetch us 1 run then. And it was a real struggle for us. So even having bowled out then for 113 odd runs, we could not chase that down. And then you come to that must-win game against USA. We're playing on that ground where it had cement and a mat on top of it. So I remember Darlington, and Usman Souza. These 2 guys were letting it fly, because I was batting at number 4. I could just see when the openers went to bat, they were just hitting that back of a length, and it just, going through the nose. So you're sitting at the dressing room thinking, okay, now this is something where we are not used to, but because there's so much at stake, we had to somehow put our heads down and bat. And those early 2 wickets meant that myself and Gyanendra, we had to, settle the things, put in our, A game where we had to leave a lot, trust the bounce, and just pray that, you wouldn't get that extra ball on your gloves or whatever. Kept pushing ourselves. And unfortunately, what happened was we went through the difficult part of handling the fast bowlers. But when it came down to spinner, maybe just took that wrong decision at that moment, trying to, score against him. And I got out, and then Gyanu got out later, and then eventually led to the fact that we could not make it. And after the game, we did realize that we were not going to make it through Division 4. And we sat down in the hotel rooms, brought in everybody together. And again, every time we lost a World Cricket League series or where we did not qualify, we looked at each other and say, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Somebody would say, no, I'm going to go to a Gulf country to work. Somebody said, no, I'm going to go to I'm going to do some job. Or somebody said, no, I'm going to start something. So it was more of a casual conversation where it was because cricket wasn't a career. We were looking into multiple options, saying, I think that's it. That was the conversation between us. But in spite of that, when we came back home, we knew that we had nothing else but to play cricket. So doing this thing and that thing was something else. But for us, it was very important that we got back to cricket again. But every time we lost a World Cricket League qualification cycle that we could not make it, it felt as if it was end of our lives, end of our careers.
It was a very pivotal moment, that loss. After that loss, this soul searching. What are we going to do? How are we going to bounce back? What does this mean for us? Where do we go? And a huge decision administratively was made. This essentially sparked the introduction of Puvaru Dasanayake as the head coach. So you went from having a very, very low negative experience where you feel like the sky is falling. Is this the end of Nepal cricket? And it actually triggers one of the most successful eras in Nepal cricket history.
So that's a bit of a teaser heading into part 2 of the interview with Paras Khadka on the Stars and Stripes Cricket Podcast. In the second half of our conversation, we go deep into the transformation that occurred starting in 2012 at World Cricket League Division 4 in Malaysia under the new leadership of Puvaru Dasanayake. We also talk about Paras' experiences leading Nepal to their first ever T20 World Cup 2014 in Bangladesh, as well as the journey to ODI status cemented at that epic week in Namibia in 2018, including the famed miracle at Windhoek against Canada and Nepal's first ODI victory shortly thereafter against the Netherlands in Amstelveen, as well as the ending to Paras' ODI career against the USA, putting a fine cherry on top of his rivalry with USA over the years. So come back next week for part 2 of the conversation with Paras Khadka. I want to remind everybody that you can support the podcast by subscribing on Patreon for as little as $3 a month. You can be a captain, be a patriot, be an eagle. Help keep the podcast running from week to week. I appreciate everybody who has subscribed on Patreon this far, and I encourage anybody else who has not yet done so to come on board. I'd also remind everybody to please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube in video form or in audio form on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, and plenty of other podcasting platforms. That's it for now. I'm Peter Della Penna reminding everybody, God bless America and God bless American cricket.